All right, welcome back and thank you so much indeed for staying with Morning Live. And yes, of course, it is that time of the year again. The silly season is upon us, and here in South Africa, we even have a name for it. We call it Kidizemba Boss. Many of us will throw caution to the wind and pretend we don't have a budget to enjoy the annual extravagant holidays and shopping spree. So we are going to be looking at the season, most importantly, in terms of the spending habits, so that when January comes, we don't have to complain about money. But just before we say hello to our guests, let's just take a quick ad break. But just before that quick ad break, we off to the Eastern Cape. That is where our reporter Zimkhita Manqinana is this morning for the fourth commemoration of the passing of our former president, Dr. Nelson Mandela. Good morning to you again, Zimkhita.
Welcome back to the Nelson Mandela Museum, where the celebrations for the fourth commemoration of Dr. Nelson Mandela's death is expected to take place here. But now we're going to speak to the chairperson of the museum, who's going to tell us about the entire program and what it means for this museum to continue to preserve the history of Dr. Nelson Mandela. A very good morning and a warm welcome to Morning Live. As this museum, how is it important to continue housing all the documents, all the videos, all the books that have information about Dr. Nelson Mandela?
Zimkhita, it's very important for us. We've been in a museum that has been celebrating the life of Dr. Madiba. We've been taking ourselves as a living museum. So now our story is of a living legacy of Madiba. We're talking about his values, what he stood for: sacrifice, empathy, selflessness, non-racialism. So the importance for us is to continue telling a story of how he lived and how he has inculcated some of those values to some of the people that he's working with, and how we can continue spreading the same message to generations to come.
How do you make sure that you make this museum appeal even to young children, so that when they grow up, they know which steps to take in their life so that they can help make South Africa great?
We do that in various forms. We've got youth dialogues, we've got edu-drama, we've got various activities. You know, youth doesn't want to only listen, they want to do and act out what is happening. So we've got lots of dialogues with the youth. We also have sport. As you know, that Dr. Madiba loved sport. So we have sporting activities, sports tournaments, where we call in our youth, and within the activities, then we tell them the message in terms of what he stood for and the values that he lived with.
Let's talk about critical issues that are continuing to happen across the country. As the museum, what influence do you have? Like, for instance, this morning we're talking about the report that was released by the public protector of state funds amounting to more than 300 million rand that were misappropriated in his name. How do you make sure as this museum that you tap into those issues and you try to change the mindset of people who are in power?
You should have been here last night. Reverend Finga, that's one of the things that you spoke of. We were talking about the issue of the moral compass, that we need to reawaken our spirits and look at the morality in terms of how we do things, because corruption happens when people also don't know what is happening, or what do they have, or their needs are not addressed. So it's very important that we use this commemoration of Dr. Madiba to tell people what our responsibilities are, because we're also saying that for corruption to happen, there's a corrupt and a corruptee. So it's quite important that business people, community at large, we all talk one voice, we're all working together to root out all these problems that we have. And it's quite fortunate that this report is coming out as we're preparing for the centenary. We know what to look out for. It assists us in terms of planning, making sure that we follow the right rules of law.
And now let's talk about the activities that are going to take place here. I know there was a Heroes Marathon on Sunday, which was hugely attended by athletes. And yesterday there was a dialogue that you just touched on by Reverend Finga. And today, what is going to happen?
Today, if you look at our programs, we talk about the fourth commemoration of Dr. Madiba. We're also talking about a Provincial Day of Reconciliation. The theme today is peace, let alone the fact that I'm not wearing all white like other people are. But the most important thing that we're talking about is peace, peace and peace. Peace within our country, peace outside borders of the country. People should be tolerant of each other. People should understand the value of another human being. We're saying that Ubuntu should always thrive in everything that we do.
On that very issue that you say, peace across the borders of our country, the issue in Libya, if Dr. Nelson Mandela was alive today, how do you think he would respond to that issue that is happening there in Libya?
Tata Madiba would definitely not be happy with what is happening in Libya. I am very sure that he'll have very strong words to the people that today, modern day slavery, when people have worked very hard to provide freedom to our people, and yet there are still others that believe that a life of another person is not so important. He would have a very strong message, and I know for a fact that he would do something, to make sure that as a South African government will say something or do something to support the people in Libya that are being held captive there.
Thank you very much for your time. Well, that's all the activities that will be taking place here at the Nelson Mandela Museum. We're also expecting the Premier of the province to be the keynote speaker. And when we come back, like we promised previously, we're expecting Ndaba Mandela to come here and have a word with us, because the family continues to be part of the entire celebrations that are taking place in the name of Tata Nelson Mandela, because they are saying that they also need to recommit themselves as the family and encourage other people, other citizens of South Africa to continue doing all those things that Tata Nelson Mandela stood for when he was alive. It's back to you in Johannesburg.